Welcome to SEC Mafia, a football podcast where the passions for college football, it runs deep here. Runs deep. I'm your host, Tyler, co-host Randy from Mobile, joining with us today. We are your guide through the heart of the Southeastern Conference, where legends are made, and every Saturday is a battle for glory. From the roaring crowds of Tiger Stadium to the electric atmosphere of Neyland, we're here with off-season content, baby.
Yeah, welcome into another episode. It's a big time. Depending on who you are a fan of, you should be able to be getting some spring football intel right now on your favorite team. A lot going on. Getting ready for that April transfer portal that is just around the corner. It truly is turning into a situation to where college football just never sleeps.
Oh, it's electric. You can feel it in the atmosphere. The SEC is just the epicenter of college football, and we're gearing up for some spring ball, like you said. I'm excited.
You know, one thing the NFL does a really good job on is their calendar. Their calendar is set up to where they have big events every single month, even in the off season. You know, March is littered with free agency, and then free agency goes into the combine, and then the combine goes into the draft in April. Then they have OTAs in May and June. Then practice starts in July with the Hall of Fame game into July, right into the preseason. So the NFL does a really good job of really making it feel like the NFL season goes year round. And college football is sort of morphing into that with the expanded playoffs and the national championship game dragging on to the end of January. You still have a little bit of signing day talk there in February, but then it's right into spring practice, April transfer portal window. Before you know it, it's going to be mid-July SEC media days.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. On the screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, is our SEC Mafia contact information. I believe we have harped on that enough to where you know what to do. Hit that like
Absolutely.
and subscribe and follow. And so with that, a little off-season topic here. Top three coaches on the hot seat for 2025 in the SEC.
Yeah, we talked about this last show or the show before. For the first time in almost a dozen years, we've seen zero coaching changes in the SEC. And think about this. This previous season, we had more teams in the SEC than we've ever had with Oklahoma and Texas coming in, but yet zero coaching changes. And I think there were a couple of coaches in Sam Pittman and Billy Napier who won some games late in the year and really awarded themselves another season. I don't want to say they got themselves off the hot seat, but they at least awarded themselves another season. And I definitely think there are several coaches that are primed for a hot seat this upcoming season.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm sure we'll have similar ones, but I think it's safe to say that the top three coaches right now in the SEC that are safe from any sort of seat being warm at any given point is you got to have Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, and Steve Sarkisian on that list as the list.
I would throw Josh Heupel in there as well.
Josh Heupel as well. Those four, they are safe and as far away from any heat of any coach in the nation right now.
Now, and again, depending on what you believe and what you hear and whatever show you listen to where somebody's trying to get clickbait, I'll tell you another one that's not on the hot seat is Kalen DeBoer. After one season replacing Nick Saban, he's not on the hot seat. I don't care if he goes 8-4 next year. I don't care if he goes 7-5 next year. He's not getting canned. Now, if he goes 7-5 next year, would the next season put him on the hot seat? Then we can start talking. But as far as the 2025 season, this list that we are discussing right here before us is a list of coaches that if they do not perform in the year 2025, come December, are going to be told to pack their bags and get out. You want to do one? You want to do one at a time, or are you just going to go all three?
I think one at a time.
So we did talk about this beforehand. We do have two that are the same. So let's go one of those. We can talk about it for a second, do another one, talk about it for a second. Then that last one, we can kind of do that back and forth. The first one that we both have, and I'm a little bit reluctant to put him on there. It depends on who you ask, who you listen to. The first one is Hugh Freeze. He has had 2 losing seasons. as the Auburn football coach. Now, some Auburn fans will tell you they're ready for him to go already. Some Auburn fans will tell you that he had to follow Gus Malzahn and Brian Harsin, and neither one of those guys recruited well, and he inherited a dumpster fire, and he's recruiting well, and he's building this thing the right way, and yada, yada, yada. I'm a little bit torn on that. On one hand, I do sort of understand how recruiting had dropped off with Malzahn and Brian Harsin, and he did kind of inherit a dumpster fire. But then you look at Deion Sanders inheriting a 1-10 Colorado squad, and within 2 years, they've got 9 wins. So, I mean, I do believe that Hugh Freeze has underachieved by going 6-7 and 5-7 his 2 years at Auburn.
Yeah, 5-11 overall in the SEC for Hugh Freeze in his first 2 years. I think it's safe to say that he will be on the hot seat this upcoming year. I mean, the really last year of success that Auburn has had has been the Music City Bowl in 2018. They have yet to have another bowl win since then, and I think the Auburn community and the Auburn fan base is really wanting to see something more, not necessarily a bowl win, but just to see consistency. And that's something that they really, really liked from a coaching standpoint last year was consistency in the coaching, consistency even with the head coach. And so I think that 2 losing seasons, if you have another one, you're really, really, really treading that line this year for Hugh Freeze.
Here's the only thing that can save him, and I think this is what saved Billy Napier at Florida this year. If he goes 5-7, if he goes 6-6, they may decide to bring him back for one more year just to try to keep the roster intact. Because here's the thing, we saw it with Nick Saban when Nick Saban left Alabama. Between graduation and the transfer portal, there was about between 35 and 40 players that left in that offseason. I mean, you're talking about half your roster left when the greatest of all time, who took you to the playoffs, who you knew a proven winner was going to be hired to take his spot. You still lost nearly half of your roster. Teams like Florida and Auburn that are sort of average, they're sort of mid-tier right now. If their head coach gets canned, the bright spots on that team are more than likely going to be gone, and it's going to set you back even further. So I think if anything saves his job, I think it will be the last 2 recruiting classes that they have had that are top 10. They've got, some young talent with Cam Coleman and some of those young receivers and some of those guys on there. I think that would be the one thing that could save him. But I don't know. Let me ask you this question. What does he have to do to get fired? What would let's say fill in the blank. Auburn finishes blank and Hugh Freeze is fired.
Well, there's
and don't be ignorant and say 0-12. I mean, let's be realistic.
No,
I mean, what's the best he can do and get fired?
My mind went completely to Ole Miss. That's where I went with that question. That's something that he could do.
Yeah, that's scandal aside. We're strictly
okay. Scandal aside, no social media involved.
We're going to leave it on the field, Coach Klein. We're leaving it all on the field.
Okay. Realistically, I think it really has to. And see, this is what is weird about this is I think if you go 4-8, but all of your 8 losses are bad, that's when you're gone. But if you go 5-7, 6-6, maybe even 4-8, but every single one of your losses is close and you could have won, it may be a different story to where they keep him to hold the roster, like you said, for next year.
I think 5-7 and he's gone. I think there has to be some type of improvement. It's one thing for Auburn fans, to sit back and say, well, he's recruited. It's
well, he has. I don't think it's a talent issue. I think he's doing a bang-up job in the transfer portal and recruiting, but it's developing that recruitment. That's the problem. It's not a talent issue. It's a coaching issue.
But here's the thing that recruiting classes don't necessarily take into consideration. If you sign 25 5-stars, which is unrealistic, but if you sign 5 5-stars and 24 stars, you're going to have one of the best classes of all time. But here's the thing. If your 5 5 stars are all wide receivers and your 24 stars are all offensive players, well, your defense is going to be trash. So that's the one thing that recruiting services don't really take into consideration is the blend and the mixture of everything that you've signed. But with Hugh Freeze, I just think there has to be some improvements. If they go 5-7, chances are they're losing to Georgia and Alabama again. That would be 6 straight to Alabama. Was it 5 straight to Georgia's?
Yeah.
I mean, and about 7 out of the last 8 or so. I mean, it's just I just think there has to be some improvement and some big win.
The main thing for them is you can't lose these gimmicky games to where you're going into the fourth quarter with the lead. All you have to do is sustain and not make stupid coaching decisions. That's the thing is there were countless times where we could have been looking at a, I don't know, 6-6, 7-5 Auburn this year, where they had the lead going into the fourth quarter, Oklahoma, Missouri, and they just blew it up.
All right. The next coach that we both had being on the hot seat was Sam Pittman. And it's not looking good for old Sam with the number of players that hit the transfer portal. We're talking about starting offensive linemen, starting tight ends. They lost a lot of starters to the portal. The one thing that I've always kind of believed when it comes to the transfer portal, don't worry about the quantity that gets in the portal, worry about the quality. And what I mean by that is if you have 25 players that are second and third stringers on your roster that hit the portal, it's not a big deal. When you have 5 or 6 starters that hit the portal, that's a bigger problem. 5 starters transferring is a bigger problem than 25 backups that transfer out. And I think Arkansas, man, they just got hit hard. I'm no Nostradamus here or anything. I just don't see any way Sam Pittman overcomes this and saves his job, unless the quarterback Green just absolutely goes nuts, puts this team on his back, and wheels them to 7 or 8 wins.
Yeah, that's really the only thing. I mean, his record, he's right around the 500 mark overall, 30-31, 14-28 in the SEC. I think he did kind of propel himself a little bit off of it this year by going 7-6, winning that bowl game this year. That does help his pace a lot. But like you said, he's lost way too much talent. And just to harp on it again, when you see first stringers coming, like starters leaving you and leaving your program, you've got a bit of a problem there internally that you've got to get fixed. When starters are leaving the program going elsewhere, albeit money issues, who knows? But you've got something internal there that you have to get fixed.
All right, fill in the blank. Sam Pittman goes blank, he gets fired. If he goes blank, so he's got to do this or anything less, and he's gone.
I mean, I think another 6-6 year and even a bowl game loss, I think he's okay. But I think 5-7 and he's gone.
I agree. I think 5-7 he's gone. 6-6, I think you could flip a coin. 6-6,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think 7-5 are better, and he's safe.
I think 6-6, and you get one of those, big name wins like they got this year against Tennessee. I think it's a coin toss, flip it up, and I think he's safe. But 5-7, he's done no matter what.
Who's your third? Because this is where we have difference of opinions here.
So my third is actually Brent Venables, and hear me out. 2022, obviously, first season as a head coach. This was his first season in 2024 as an SEC coach, but he goes 6-7 in his first year, flips around and he goes 10-3 in his second. Well, then he goes 6-7 again this year in the SEC. Venables has the only 2 losing records at Oklahoma since 1998. And he is 0-3 in every single one of his bowl games as a head coach. I don't want to label him as a hot seat necessarily. I want to label him as a warm seat. If he goes 6-6 again and they lose another bowl game, I don't think they fire him. But I think that next year is the year of the hot seat. And I know it's kind of not really the title of this segment, but I do think that he is on a warmer and warmer and warmer seat.
Yeah, I didn't choose Venables just because I think the administration will have a little bit of leeway with him due to all the injuries that they faced this year. I mean, whenever you look at the different offensive line combinations, I want to say in every single game they started a different combination of offensive linemen. They were down to their 7th string wide receiver starting. Their top 6 pass catchers at some point in time to the season got hurt. So I didn't really put him on that list because of that. I do believe that this is a make or break season to where if the wheels fell off the wagon, it wouldn't surprise me to see him go if they went 4-8 or something like this. But I'm kind of like what you said, 6-6. I think he's safe. My third coach was Mark Stoops. And when you first hear that, you start thinking, well, this guy's the winningest coach in Kentucky history.
Yeah, but he's been there for 30 years.
Here's why I chose Mark Stoops. And a lot of it is not on the field. I think it has to do with him trying to backdoor channel and get the Texas A&M job 2 years ago. If you remember, he was named the head coach at Texas A&M late in the night. Everybody went to bed thinking that Mark Stoops was the next head coach at Texas A&M. The people of Texas A&M just had an absolute come apart and a mutiny, and everybody wakes up and you hear that Mark Stoops indeed is not going to be the next head coach at Texas A&M. I think when he did that, I think he signed his death wish at that point in time. I think they've got to go 7-5 or better to save his job this year, just because when he did that, I think he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and they're going to be looking for him to hit the door.
Yep. I love it. Way too early, top 3 SEC championship contenders. Man, this is way too early. We're 6 months away?
Way too early. We still have another transfer portal window to open after spring practice.
Gosh, way too early then. We don't even need to do this segment. I mean, if we're just going to – let's just make the transfer portal year-round. Let's just open it up. You can do whatever you want. National Athletic Association.
I believe we're going to get that resolved this year. I think we're going to see the transfer portal go down to one window a year. But it's almost like, and I know we're not a basketball show or anything like that, but it's almost like the NCAA is purposely trying to wreck things. Why in the world does the transfer portal open up during the middle of the NCAA tournament?
In the middle.
Stupid. It is the stupidest thing. But anyway, way too early. Top 3 SEC championship contenders. Let's hear your 3.
All right, I've got on my list Alabama, LSU, Georgia. Alabama is returning 10 starters on the defense. 10 starters. 3 starters on O-line, 2 wide receivers coming back. The quarterback room is still at large, but I do think that this is a good, way too early top 3 SEC championship contender based upon the veteran defense that is coming back that we saw really come together under Kane Womack this last year. LSU's on my list.
The biggest asset that Alabama has, real quick to harp on that, I think the biggest asset Alabama's got going for them is the hiring of Ryan Grubb.
Ryan Grubb. I was getting there.
I don't think he'll be taken aback and confused as much as Nick Sheridan when it comes to calling plays.
No. My boy Grubb. LSU. I put them on this list reluctantly. I wanted to go South Carolina, but I think South Carolina has just lost a lot of talent, especially in the running back room. I know Dylan Stewart's back, but I think the defense has taken a hit. LSU is going to be on my way too early top 3. You've got Nussmeier back. He's one of the highest touted quarterbacks in the SEC right now. Harold Perkins Jr. is back on the edge. They're getting a couple of defensive players from FSU, Patrick Payton, Florida, Jack Pyburn on the defensive side. I think that old Kelly's trying to build that defense up because he knows that defense isn't what it has been or what it needs to be. And with Nussmeier back, flying the plane, man in the cockpit of this ever wonky plane that Brian Kelly has, I think that LSU could be a top 3 candidate this year. And then Georgia, of course, second best signing class. They got a USC playmaker coming in, and Zachariah
Branch.
Yeah, Branch. Their schedule is completely flipped. They get Alabama and Texas at home this year. 11 starters are returning on both sides of the ball, including Oscar Delp, and then Evan Green on the O-line. So I think Georgia's – the only question for me for Georgia is quarterback.
Will they have enough players that don't get arrested for
that too.
driving? Will they actually have enough to field a team? But no, this is where this is tough. I'm going to ask you this question. So before we got on here, I looked up the odds to win, the over and under on games to win for SEC teams. Do you know how many teams in the SEC are projected to win 10 or more games this upcoming season? Awkward silence. That's terrible for podcast.
2?
That'd be a big 0. No team. The highest win total projection in the SEC right now is 9.5. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. All are at 9.5. LSU's at 8.5. That lets me know that Vegas feels about like we do. You're just rolling the dice right now. I kind of went a different route. I did put Georgia in there just because we've seen Georgia make the playoffs over and over again. We know Kirby won back-to-back national titles.
4 out of the last 5.
I was a little bit reluctant with Georgia just because I think with Todd Monken gone and Mike Bobo being the OC, I think Georgia's lost a little bit of its offensive luster. I would not be surprised at all to see Georgia go 9-3 this year. For whatever reason, Alabama just seems to be their kryptonite. I would not be surprised to see Texas beat them, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Ole Miss or Tennessee beat them this year. But I'm going to stick with Georgia just because they're a familiar face. The other two that I'm going to go with as way too early championship contenders, I'm basing this strictly on their schedule, and that's Texas and Ole Miss. I think they're both talented. I think they have a lot of returning starters, a lot of playmakers. They've done well in the transfer portal, and I think their schedule's set up nicely. I mean, Ole Miss's schedule set up nicely this year. If it wasn't for Kentucky and Florida, they would have made the playoffs this year. Sort of want to put Tennessee in that boat, but I think with them having to go to Bryant-Denny Stadium, I think Alabama beats them this year. They've still got Georgia, and then, of course, they've still got Florida and a couple other decent teams. So I'll go Ole Miss, Georgia, and Texas.
Okay. I like it.
I'm glad you approve.
Way too early worst teams in the SEC for 2025. Oh, man, this could go a bunch of different ways.
So this is tough because there's only a couple of teams in the SEC that are actually projected to have a losing record according to the win-loss totals. Those teams, believe it or not, this blew my mind. Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
Vanderbilt's win. They're 4.5. That's their win total.
Yep.
Mississippi State 3.5. I think we can both agree Mississippi State's going to be one of the lowest teams in the SEC.
They're one of mine.
I think Arkansas, that's going to be one of mine. They're at 5.5. But Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky, those are the 4 teams with the worst odds. I'm going Mississippi State, Kentucky, Arkansas as the worst teams in the SEC.
I wish you could see that. I literally wrote it down. I said Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Kentucky for their NIL troubles, money troubles. I mean, we already saw Stoops come out and say, oh, well, y'all need to start pocketing more money for NIL so we can get players. So, obviously, there's some internal issues there. And then Arkansas, just for the absolute mass exodus they've had this year, I just don't – I mean, 4.5 is probably good for them, I don't see them overcoming that.
And then you look at Mississippi State, failed to win an SEC game this year. Will Mississippi State win an SEC game this upcoming season? I'm going to say
write it down. You can write it down. Minute 24:42 right here on the podcast. Tyler from T-Town said that Mississippi State will win an SEC game this year. Against who? I don't know, but I got a feeling it could be in the Egg Bowl. Emotions run high on rivalry week, and I'm telling you, they're going to win a game.
So to quote one of the one of my favorite lines from one of the best movies of all time. That
Please
brings me
do
to
it.
my next point. Don't
Don't
smoke crack.
crack.
No way, Mississippi State. They're not.
Yes, I'm
Not.
telling you. I'm telling you. My boy Levy don't know what he's doing undercover. He may be feeding them boys crack. They're gonna win one SEC game this
When
year.
your starting quarterback transfers to LSU to be the backup,
Hey,
you got issues.
he didn't want it. They don't want to win. It's
Yeah,
Bruce's time to shine. Next man
yeah,
up.
I know it is.
2025 sleeper pick for the SEC. Man, you go ahead, Randy.
So sleeper picking someone that had a losing record this year to not necessarily win the conference, but to have a dramatic turnaround. I'm going to go with Oklahoma. I like Latier, the quarterback that Oklahoma brought in from Washington State. They also brought in Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator from Washington State. So you've got an offensive coordinator and a quarterback. The offensive coordinator is bringing in a new system, but he's also brought the quarterback that knows that system to make the learning curve a little bit easier on his guys. I think they get a little bit healthier. They brought some guys in the transfer portal. I think Oklahoma goes 8-4.
Okay.
And
My
if the SEC is what we're thinking it is, and it's going to be another season of
That's
them
good.
just cannibalizing each other, if you're sitting there, 8-2 after 10 games, you're going to be in a playoff discussion.
Yeah.
You end up 8-4 at some point in the season, you're going to be in the playoff hunt. So who knows? I mean, they have a tendency against Texas to just pull some out of their rear end every so often. So who knows? Maybe they luck up and beat Texas this year.
My sleeper team for the year 2025 is going to be the Auburn Tigers. As reluctant as I am to say that, I do think that the addition of Jackson Arnold, coupled with the receiving room, Cam Coleman's coming back. Running back room is going to be, something new, something that they'll have to develop. But I do think that
Losing
having
Jarquez Hunter is a big loss.
it's a big loss. It is. But if Hugh Freeze can somehow manage Jackson Arnold better than how he did this year with
Well,
the
that's
quarterback.
that's why Oklahoma was kind of my sleeper team. I think one thing that blew up in Oklahoma's face is
They didn't.
When Jeff Lebby left to go to Mississippi State, Brent Venables kind of tried to go more pro style.
Yep.
Jackson Arnold's just not a pro style quarterback, so they ship him out of there. He's now going to Auburn, and that's what makes this a good pick for Auburn
Yeah.
because Jackson Arnold is going to be in a spread offense that he's comfortable with.
Absolutely.
But up until this point, that's kind of what Oklahoma has recruited, and so now they go get their quarterback, they go get their OC. I think these are both really good sleeper picks. Of course, Oklahoma is the better of the two pick, but I can see why you're saying Auburn.
Oh, wow. Do you even watch football, bro?
I haven't watched a game in years, buddy. I just read the headlines.
Yeah, me too. I don't even know what I'm talking about. They got
No,
a
I don't.
couple of, huh?
I don't watch football, man. I just get all my knowledge from the SEC Mafia podcast.
Hey, you click on AI. You ask AI to formulate your notes for the podcast.
I just listen to the SEC Mafia. Those guys know football, man.
Yeah, I know you do. Final thoughts from Randy from Mobile, everyone's favorite segment of the evening.
So
I had a final thought, but you kind of stole it from me because I was going to gear towards March Madness with my final thought and say is the NCAA trying to ruin college sports by making the portal open up? But we already discussed that. So
I think that's another one of their dark conspiracies trying to help the little guy.
yeah, oh yeah,
Because the teams in the tournament are not going to be able to hit the portal and fill their voids, just like the teams in the playoffs couldn't worry about the transfer portal to fill their voids for the upcoming season. And it allows teams in conferences that didn't make the playoffs to try to better their rosters. But my final thoughts, this is going to be a lot different. Just something on my mind to say here. There's a lot going on in the world. A lot going on in the world politically, a lot going on in the world with conflicts and wars and all those things. Whoever's out there, whatever you're going through, keep your head up, keep your chin up, put your eyes on God, Christ told us that in this world we would face troubles. As you're going through troubles, don't allow those troubles to define you. Don't allow your struggles to define you. Don't allow Satan or anyone in your life to tell you that your struggles and your shortcomings do define you. Put your faith in Christ. Put your faith in God. If you do those things, I promise you there is a way through that. There is a better side. There is a better day. You may not see that in the situation that you are in right now. You may not understand how you're going to get through it. But that's the beautiful thing about our faith is we don't have to see through it. We just have to believe through it and follow God to get us through that. So just a bit of a serious tone right here in final thoughts. Just whatever you are going through, I promise there's a way through it.
I like what you said there. We don't have to see through it. And to add to that, we are blessed to get to trust in the one who does see through it.
Right.
We look to him because he knows what's going to happen before we even can think about what's going to happen. So
right.
Very good ending to the podcast today. Yeah, not much more you can say to that.
Be back in 2 weeks.
Hey, 2 weeks, baby. We're back. Football's back.
Randy's out.